Okay, so hello everyone. Happy Wednesday, and thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join our webinar. We have the agenda in front of us, so we'll start with a quick introduction. This is where I'll introduce our guest speaker today and also the wonderful company I work for. Then we'll dive straight into the live demo, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A session. So at any time, should you have questions, please submit them to us and we'll gladly address them. We're recording this webinar and I'll be sending the webinar recording link shortly after the session. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with KWIZ, officially we're a QuizCom corporation. The company was founded back in 2005. We're a leading global developer of numerous Microsoft 365 add-ons and apps. We proudly serve over 10,000 organizations worldwide, and we are headquartered in Canada. We also have offices in the US and UK. And as part of the efficiency group, we are specializing in Microsoft 365 services. Next slide, please.
And that's me. I'm Gokan Ozcifci. I'll be the guest for the 40-45 minutes explaining you a bunch of cool stuff. I'm going to try to explain you within those 40 minutes everything that I've been using, loving about KWIZ and their tools. I'm based in Brussels, Belgium, so it's almost end of the day for me. I'm a Microsoft MVP and regional director, so extremely glad to be here. And I'll try to make funny jokes. So if the jokes are not fun enough, well, that's normal because that's me. Well, that's all what I have to say. And I'll give it back to you, Sarah.
Well, thanks, Gokan. Yes, see, I was going to introduce you and I thought it's going to take the full session, but you did it quickly and nicely. Yeah, so I wanted also to mention that yesterday it was Gokan's birthday. So happy belated birthday, Gokan.
Thank you. Getting old now.
Okay, so as mentioned, we have a rich product portfolio. I won't be talking about forms. I'll leave it to Gokan as he will do a much better job than me. A few other products, to mention. This will give you an idea of our offerings. These are data visualization tools such as calendar, organization charts, list view, picture gallery app. We have also printing and scanning solutions, data sheet view. I'd also like to mention our most recent releases. So we have Audit app. It empowers you to understand the health of your Microsoft 365 environment and identify risks. And you can have reports like guest user reports, often to users report, sharing link reports, storage reports, all exportable to Excel. And CMS 365, this is a solution for Wiki, for SharePoint Online. It's basically cloud-based solution. It's based on content management system platform. It seamlessly integrates with Microsoft Teams. Next slide, please. And as mentioned, we're specializing in Microsoft 365 services. These are, for example, migrating from SharePoint on-premises to SharePoint Online, Microsoft 365 security assessment services, custom development of apps, Azure Web Apps, training, consulting, support, you name it. Next slide, please. A couple of things to mention about our products. All our products are SharePoint hosted apps. So these are client-side apps. This means none of your data leaves your tenant. Next slide, please, Gokan. And this is the reason many government organizations have chosen to work with KWIZ. Once again, simply because all your data is 100% safe with us. And all our products are fully web and mobile responsive. So if you're using your desktop or handheld devices, so no need for two separate designs. And again, if you are using Microsoft Teams, our products integrate seamlessly with Microsoft Teams. You can display your forms or data visualization tools there. And I guess with that, I'll pass it over to Gokan.
Yes, it's my time to talk now. Thank you so much for the nice introduction, Sarah. Gentlemen, people, I'm, as said, from Belgium, and we don't speak really English here. So my main language is French, which you probably know for those Canadian ones, as well as Dutch, and I have some Turkish roots. So that means that I have to, think in 4 different languages, which almost makes it impossible when I have like sentence that, it's difficult for me it's going to be difficult for you. So if something is not that clear enough, please raise your hand. Sarah is there, Peter Badley is there as well. Those lovely people are here to help me. So any question you would have, just mention in the chat or just raise your hand and I'll try to help you as soon as possible. Today's session is all about forms on SharePoint, a simple way to achieve it with KWIZ. I don't like slides, honestly. I'm one of yours. I just love when people just show things working on screen, but I do still have like 4 or 5 slides to have a quick introduction. Why KWIZ is so important today for us within SharePoint, and why you should use it. Very simple. The first slide here is, what is a SharePoint form? Well, many of yours who work with SharePoint do know what the SharePoint form is. Don't confuse with Microsoft Forms or PowerApps Forms or XYZ Forms. Today, we're mainly going to focus on SharePoint Forms. And as you can see on the image on the right side, a form is a screen where you actually collect data, simple data, complex data, data from inside your organization, data from outside of your organization. Any kind of data that you will get into your M365 environment. And SharePoint has the one that we all know from a SharePoint list or a document library. All those panes, well, what we call them today is forms. But is Microsoft doing a great job with that? Well, the answer is pretty straightforward, yes and no. There is no real response because not one size will fit all requirements. You can't have one single form that Microsoft provides to you that will fit every organization. And there are a lot of reasons people might need to change forms, whether it's a SharePoint within PowerApps or X, Y, and Z, you need to change them. And this is my 5 personal things that I believe why people need to change the forms. The first one is the updated requirements. Yes, we have a SharePoint list which collects data, but businesses change, Microsoft changes, the world is changing. And sometimes, yes, we need to change a form to make it more simple, to make it easier to work, to gather information. It is also possible that the existing form we have is time consuming and people need to change it to make it faster and easier. New regulations, new policies. I do work for a lot of organizations, financial institutions, and my goodness, how many rules and regulations they have, and how many times we have to take our time to modify everything within our form. The integration changes. As I said, you have your data inside of Microsoft or even outside of Microsoft. System integrations, you can go to Dataverse if we talk pure about Microsoft. You can get your data from Microsoft Dataverse. You can go to Amazon Web Services, XYZ. And if something changes in their backend, well, it could have an impact on your form as well. So you have to have actually something in your mind to always keep that in mind and change it, and bug fixes and errors. In short, the need to change forms arises from the dynamic nature of business processes and data collection requirements. This is the only truth. The data collection pane, the form, will always be changing depending on what you need today and tomorrow. Now, that being said, Microsoft proposes you 2 choices within the collaboration aspect. The first one is the SharePoint form, which is simple and quick to draw. If you add like a column, well, that column will be part of your form. You can just change the order and so on and so on. And this is very simple for, or let's call it like, this is suitable for simple data, names, dates, or choices. You know, that will do it perfectly well. And then Microsoft also had within the Power Platform the PowerApps forms, which was more for complex forms where you could actually automate with Power Automate or even write somewhere else and not only into SharePoint. And not only for that, you can also add some logic to your data, integrate with different sources such as premium connectors within the Power Platform. But nevertheless, that you use SharePoint or PowerApps, the main thing is it is complex. It is complex because of those thin artifacts I did figure out when I tried to, sell them for forms or explain them why KWIZ was doing it pretty well. Those 10 artifacts are the fact that will explain you why, if you go to PowerApps as an example, well, it's going to be a bad decision. And don't get me wrong, I love PowerApps. I've been building apps for a long time, but from the Forms perspective, it's not that optimal as well. The first thing is about the learning curve. You know, like if you go for PowerApps for modifying your forms, well, you have to always keep up to date. Microsoft is adding a lot of new features, functionalities, artifacts to PowerApps, and you have to, and there's even a recommendation to save your app every 3 months, 6 months. Well, by doing that, well, you need to be always up to date with what's happening with PowerApps. You don't have any offline capability unless you use Dataverse, which is like a premium version. You have to pay for it. And especially the one that's really complex for us is the limited debugging tools. Today, if you have an error, a problem with PowerApps, and take the example, I want that within my form, if I put into my number fields a number which is more than 10,000, I like to be in it in red because it exceeds my budget, right? Something very simple. Well, you can do that, but if it throws you an error, well, good luck in debugging that because it's still today very soft in debugging. And especially, well, the costs, right? PowerApps is not for free, especially if you're going to use the managed environments or if you're going to use the Dataverse, which is coupled with that, and so on and so on. I'm not going to go deep dive into all of that, but those are the 10 things that I think is conversation worthy when you discuss about, hey, should we go for KWIZ, should we go for PowerApps, or should we just remain on SharePoint? Finally, the last slide before we deep dive into the demo, and that's the definition of why the best dynamic SharePoint forms is KWIZ. And there is one thing that I really enjoyed in their definition is enjoy all our features without the need to learn a new interface. And that was the trigger for many of my customers to go for KWIZ, because learning curve, teaching people about PowerApps, teaching people about new formulas, teaching people about any other solution, it's complex, it requires a lot of time, effort, and it has a lot of cost. However, with KWIZ, it's built on top of SharePoint with the SharePoint functions and formulas, and it feels almost like it's part of SharePoint. So it's almost the same interface, and there is no technical coding skills needed. I am not a developer, and if I could do it without even an explanation, I think anyone can do this, right? Okay, that's all I had to say from a slide perspective. Just give you an introduction about what forms are, compare it with PowerApps, give you the 10 fundamental problems that you could have, which are conversation worthy, and why I think KWIZ with their tool, which is based on SharePoint, is the tool to go. Now, I'm going to stop my presentation and open a SharePoint list. And now, Sarah, I'm going to ask you if you guys can all see my SharePoint list.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, fantastic. I'm not going to go spend a lot of details into the boring side of the story, which is licensing as well as the installation. What is interesting for me and for everyone in this meeting is all about what you can do with KWIZ, right? I have a simple list with a few metadata, a few columns, which is owner. I have a sample data with names, a price tag, a VAT, and a company. All random stuff, nothing real world-based scenario. It's just to show you how easy it can be to use KWIZ apps. While the installation is done correctly and everything is up to date, well, you will see this nice jump button just above on your ribbon. And when you click on it, well, you still remain in SharePoint, so you don't go anywhere else. And that's what I meant with, that's the phenomenal thing with KWIZ. If I just go here to my home, and within that KWIZ, I create a list, which is called PowerApp Forms, right? And I'll click here on create. That list is still SharePoint, but if within my list, I do PowerApps and customize this form, well, you will see that now I'm leaving the SharePoint experience. And basically, you need to be a maker in order to create and build all those intelligence and forms within your SharePoint list, which is cool if you are passionate about PowerApps and if you know what PowerApps is and if you can build those formulas, phenomenal, right? But if you're not that specific guy, well, how do you even start with this, right? Well, you can see you have like a data source with this, my SharePoint. I can see my screens. Oh, wow. I can add a bunch of stuff from insert, and then you will get very easily lost on what to do, right? And that's what we typically want to avoid. We don't want people coming here and getting lost and say you, hey, mate, I couldn't do anything because this is completely new for me. This is not SharePoint that I've been using before. I'm going to leave this and come back to my SharePoint within my production environment, right? And I'm going to click on KWIZ Apps. Now, within the KWIZ Apps, you'll see you have a bunch of options that you can choose from here. Within 30 minutes, I'm going to try to show a bunch of them to you, and my apologies if I can't finish all of them. But let's start with this one that I really love, the conditional formatting, the first one. And you'll see I still remain to my SharePoint. And then you can choose on what you want to apply your conditional formatting. You can say all rules in that list, all rules that apply on all columns, or even choose your column. Let's say I want to do this for everything within here. And when you click on, let's say, title, right? On my title, I would like to apply some conditional formatting. And you can tell here what color it should be. Well, I like yellow, so I'm going to say yellow. And I'm going to add a condition. And that condition could be anything from my list, from columns as well as system columns. And that's what's phenomenal with KWIZ, is that you can even play with values that comes from the system, from SharePoint. To make it simple, I'll go for the title, and I'm going to say this title field, which is my metadata, well, it could be equal to, not equal to, contains something, begins something, and you get a bunch of filter options to make that filter worthy for your title. And I'm going to say, okay, I like to use something which contains, I could do my own name, right? So if the title is containing Gokan, well, bring the color to yellow. Or as you can see, I can use some intelligence such as this. And then it's not hard-coded anymore to Gokan, but anything which is your token, right? If you write me and Peter is using with this token that form, well, that value will be dynamic and will be Peter. So I'm going to just here use Gokan just to make it simple. And then I'm going to just click on save. Very easy. I'm coming back to my KWIZ production list. And then if I just click on new, here you'll see the KWIZ logo was just appearing for a few seconds. If I click Gokan, you'll see that the background is now in yellow. With no code, nothing done, just a quick clicks, and you can see that my title is now in yellow. So if I now do Gokan and then say like here, I work for KWIZ, my price, my daily price is that, and I ask only this as VAT, I click on save, well, that new item will be saved for me. And you will see now that the color is now in yellow in the background, the conditional formatting. If I go back to my conditional formatting, what you will now see is the following. I have this, right? I can edit this and even add a condition more. I can have double conditions. I can easily say and or something else, column or system columns, again, applying some filters and then giving the value I want to expect from that. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and look how beautiful it's designed even to choose your color. And that's okay. You know what? I don't want to have yellow anymore. I'll just go for red and then click on save. And then that within my KWIZ prod will be now, if I click here, and that's the beauty of the story, all the values are changed, new ones as well as the existing ones. Good luck on doing this with PowerApps. Just telling you, it's not an easy task, but with KWIZ, very easy to do that. So that's the conditional formatting. What I really also like is the dynamic column permissions within KWIZ. And just to use that, I'm going to just do something else, right? You have also the signature pad, which is one of the things I really loved with KWIZ is the signature pad. You know, being able to sign an item is phenomenal. It's something that a lot of financial institutions have been asking for. You know, when you add an item, just make it sure that I can sign it. I'm going to give the column a name, and then you can just select who can sign to that item. Well, I'll leave it open, so anyone, you can make it required. And this one is the most important one, the signed columns. What does that mean? If you hover on the E button, it says select columns you wish to the signature to verify. The signature will become invalid if those are changed. That means that the signature is not static, but dynamic. So I'm going to add my item. I'm going to sign it, right? Pretty well, pretty good. But if I change that item, and this, I can choose which field I'm going to change. Well, could be the title, could be the price, could be anything into SharePoint. Well, that signature becomes invalid. I have to re-sign it again. And you start your application, not the application lifecycle, but the ALM on your list item, which is something that no one is actually doing today in the organization. When they add the list item, it remains there. Now I have a lifecycle management on my list item. Okay, let's try this. I'm gonna just say, okay, title is good, and I'm gonna just, leave the background image as the same, the colors as the same, and I'm gonna just click on save. Now I have, if I come back to my quiz prod, I should have something called, and maybe do a refresh. I should see a new column, just called here signature. It added automatically that signature for me. Now, if I click on new, you will see I can add new item, and I have my signature pane here. So I'm going to do here. Let's go for Samir company. Let's go for Facebook. Let's go for this price, VAT this, and then I can just use my signature, sign it here, and it will be saved. If I just click on save, that's going to be saved into my SharePoint list. Let me just quickly refresh so I can see it, and you'll see that this item has been signed by Gokan Ozcifci. Within a few clicks, I was able to do that. Well, the wonderful thing with that, the signature pane or any other column within your SharePoint, is that you can have the dynamic column permission. If you click on it, well, you first have to choose which column you want to make dynamic. Well, the signature one, I like to do it when a field is, has some data, or just, when after filling in a bunch of data, I want to make sure that this comes as last. You probably want to avoid people signing something before even filling it. So I'm going to just for signature, and again, the same methodology, the same way of working, well, you can add a rule. And then I'm going to say, you know what? Hide this signature pane from the new item form. When you click on new item, that's the new item form. I'm going to hide this from there. And then I like to have a condition. When should it be hidden? Well, very easily. Again, I have my system columns. I have my own columns, but now you get also your parameters as current user. So I can easily say, if the CEO is adding a new item, well, you know what? Hide it for every time, because the CEO doesn't really need a signature. However, if it's Gokan or somebody else, well, make it visible, and so on and so on. Could be anything. In my scenario, I like to say if the title is empty. So hide it into the new item form if the title is empty, is an option, is a possibility. So let's save this and see how that's going to work now. If I go to Quiz Prod and say new, here, well, the signature pane has disappeared, right? I don't have that option anymore. However, if I now say that this is Philip, and then you'll see that the signature pane is now appearing into my form. And now I can start signing it again. And if I just save this, well, you will see that that item will be added, signed by myself in green into the list Philip, and it has been signed. And that's how powerful you can go with the dynamic. I just need to remember the exact name while this is being opened with the dynamic fields. What you can do, there we go, that dynamic column permission is you can hide, show columns based on anything you want to do within your list. Now, One thing which is so great with Quiz is what I like to see is the layout, the form layout. Here, when you click on form layout, well, basically you can define on how your form is looking like, right? You can here show it as tabs or as collapsible groups. And that's where you as a maker, as a designer within SharePoint, can define on how you can actually play with data and show data in your SharePoint. Let's go for tabs and show it to you. Here, if you click on new tab, well, I can give it a name. Let's call it group 1. And here, when you click on add row, that's where the beauty starts. I can add anything that I want to show from my HTML elements. So I can add a horizontal line, a text cell, I can add a button, I can add a reverse lookup, I can add columns as well as system columns. Let's play a bit around. So let's say for the group 1, I like to see the title, and now you will see that you have title here. If I click on that little arrow, which is add column, well, you can choose to add something else. So if I go here and say, okay, show me the signature, you can do that. You can even add a third column and choose for something else. I'll go for VAT. Let's go for Ford, and I think Ford was the limit, if I'm not wrong. Oh, no, there we go. You can add more, but what you can do is you can click here and make this bigger. You know, you can even play around with the size of the items you have in your column. If you want to make it smaller, it's like this. If you want to delete, it's that column. If I add a new row, here I can say, okay, I like to add a horizontal line, add a row, and here, you know what? I'm going to add the system columns. I'll go for created, and I'll go for, let's say, created by. And you're building your form with just dragging and dropping and clicking and, you know, just by how you want to see it. If you click on preview form, that's how your form is going to look like, just like this. And then you can add a group 2, just here, there, and then you can just rename that group 2. And then here, group 3. And then here, group 4. And so on, and so on, and so on. You can do as much as you like. Here, you can leave it empty. Here, if you add a row, well, you can add, and what I really like is you can add the button. And that button could have a JavaScript call. If you click on the GS, you can get the editor and you can write your GS code that can do something for you within that button. I'm going to just, you know, for the sake of the demo, just delete the ones that are empty. And I have 2 now, the 1 and 3. If now I save this within my list, I click on quiz prod. Here, if I go for new, well, what you will now see is that I have a completely different view on what I had before, right? So I have my title, my VAT, signature is empty. If I do here Gokan, well, you'll see that the signature appears here. So it is not because you decided to change the way the layout on how it's looking like that the logic behind is changing too. No, remember what we did is if the title is empty, don't show the signature. Now you can see that if it has some data, that the signature pane is appearing here. I'm going to add the VAT and the price, and then click on save. And you can see that this will be saved into my SharePoint list as well. Now, the good thing is, if I click on an existing one, well, I should be getting more data because remember the created and the created by was part of the second one. When you create a new one, you don't per se have the created because I didn't click on the create button. So there is no data, it was empty, so it's going to show empty. But now when I click on an existing item, well, you can see that the created and the created by also appears within my list. I'm going to close this and I'm going to go back to my quiz apps, which is the center of all the apps I have. Now you could say, okay, that's good. I like it. The forms layout, it's pretty good. But you have 2 options, right? You had the first one, the tabs. And now you have the collapsible groups. if I save this, the collapsible groups, and go back to my quiz prod, well, what you're now going to see is if I click on new, that the layout has changed a bit, and now I can just close or open the form depending the needs I have. So I again have the same title, my signature, VAT, and price, and my button, which doesn't do anything because I have no GS code which can make anything for me if I click on top of it. So all of that is possible for you to do. Now, let's go a bit further and say, you know what? Gokan, all of that, that's good. But, you know, I'd like to do something different. I like to have something automatic. You know, I've been talking a lot about PowerApps, but we also have Power Automate. You know, you want to do something on a scheduled basis or on an action. If something happens, do something, right? Well, that's also possible with Quiz. And you don't have to pay any extra license for Power Automate or PowerApps or Dataverse. It's all part of the suite of tools we have. And you have to remember three things. First, you have to build that action. Then you have to call that action. And then you can call that action on a specific time frame. Let's do that. First thing is called the activities here, the first one. If you click on activities, well, you can bring and create a bunch of activities for you. Well, here is all the things that you can do, and it's a lot. You can add items, copy items, delete items, email, get column value, and so on, and so on, and so on. And easily, well, you could say, okay, you know what? If someone adds something into a list item, I like to create something somewhere else. Or if someone does something, send an email or update item or move an item. Like if someone adds an item into a list, I like to move that item somewhere else to be reviewed. I'm just guessing some scenarios, but all that automation part is possible with Quiz. Let's go for add an item as an example here. And I'm going to call this webinar add item. And then you can give a description. It's up to you. I just leave it blank if the title is clear enough for me to understand what that action is doing. Then you can go to the properties, and that's where the intelligence is starting with your app. You can say, okay, you know what? I like to add that item into my current site or to other sites if you have other sites in an environment. So I'm going to say, okay, you know what? It's going to be my current site, and you have to move or add an item into that list. Well, you know what? I should have somewhere a list. Let's go for quiz test here. I can add something here. And then again, you can add some fields to update, which could be, you know, like if you have VAT titles in description DDD, and I'm going to just show that to you, quiz test. If I open, those are all the tests I made just here, all the columns. It was intelligent enough to go and read all the columns I had and show it just for you here. So I'm going to just, you know, say here, I don't want to have anything to update, just add an item and click on save. No, I should do, and I'm going to update the title to, let's say, Gokan. Just bring some automation to my application. Let's see if I had something else. Copy, delete. No, that's good. Okay. Now, this is the basic stuff that you can do with the activities, but as you have seen, there is no way on triggering it or on calling it. It's just building the activity. Then you have to jump to the other side of the screen and go to the custom actions. If you go to the custom actions, well, here, well, you can make that automation for you within the quiz, within your SharePoint list, and say, you know what, this is an automatic action, or it's going to be a user action. The difference is, if you go for automatic action, it's anytime when an item is added, deleted, or updated. So every time when an item, a list item, is updated, added, or deleted, well, you can run that trigger. Or you can go for end user action, and then they will have a little icon coming into their list, and then you can just click on that button, and that will be triggered for you. I always go for the item added, and then give it the name, item added, custom action, right? And then here under the activities, well, you know what? The one that we just created a couple of seconds ago, well, will appear here. So that means that you can add a bunch of other activities within your custom action. So the one that I did was just, you know, copying an item or creating an item into a list, into a specific column. But you can do a bunch of other automation, intelligent stuff within your custom action and call it only when an item is added, updated, or deleted from your list, right? You can also have conditions, you know, okay, I know this is my custom action, I have my activity, but then you can also have like a condition and say, okay, you know what, if Gokan is equal to that, then run it. Or if it's not Gokan, don't run it. Or if it's the CEO updating my list, don't run it, and so on and so on. You know, that intelligence I showed you a couple of minutes ago, you can also have it from here. So I'm going to just remove that and save this here. Now, we have this, right? Every single time when something is happening, well, it will do something for me. But again, it's not on a schedule based. If I go back, oh, my apologies. If I go back again to my apps, remember we did build our activity here. We created our custom action here. And then you also have like this scheduled actions. I can create a scheduled action just here and say scheduled action. And then say, okay, you know what? You have to run on specific days at specific times, run it every day on specific times, or run every few hours. And then you can just choose the hours. You can choose here on the dates. So if you have like a specific automation, you want to make sure that it's always on Sunday at midnight or 5 p.m. or 6 a.m., anything you want, well, you can do that. It's the automation, it's the power of the automation you have within KWIZ. And if you click on activities again, well, you can call the webinar activity you had built a couple of minutes ago and call them from here. All of that is definitely possible with the apps just here. What I'm now gonna do is show you something visually appealing. I'm gonna here add date and time. Just here and call it date and time. Okay, so here I can include the time, friendly format. I don't really care about that, but I just have like a column which is called date and time. And now what you can do is whenever I create a new item, here I'm gonna call it Gokan Ozcifci, sign it. The thing is, it won't show up here, right? I don't see it. So what we need to do is, again, here, go to our KWIZ prod into our KWIZ app, and then modify the view and make sure that the columns we have appear, or we can easily just say, you know what, we want to delete that. We want to delete that too, and it's going to be empty. And if I now click on save and come to my KWIZ prod, and I'm going to just go here and click on refresh, just here. And if I now do a new, it should go to the classic SharePoint view as we had before. I'm going to do Gokan Ozcifci, right? Company Microsoft, price this and this and this, just giving some random values, VAT 123. And this is the important one for me. I like that this item is validated, approved, deleted, anything on that specific time frame, right? And I click on save. Well, what's not good? Oh, probably this one. 1, 2, 3, 3. Save. There we go. I have my new list item. If I just click on refresh, you will see that I have now date and time into my SharePoint list. What was really a trigger for us was this one. You have within the apps, the one that we call here the, and I can't find it, the countdown, there it is, the countdown column. You can create a column, which you can call countdown, right? Just here, hit on enter, and then say, you know, the countdown is from that specific date and time, and the behavior can be when the time is come to count up or stop. It's up to you on how you want to do that. And all the rest is basically optional, you know, like the caption, the paste due caption, on how you want to see the date, minute, hour, and seconds, and so on. It's all optional. What's important for me is the name of my column and on what he has to look for the countdown. If I click on save, well, now I have a new column called countdown. If I come here, well, if I just do a quick refresh, just to make sure that the caching is being correctly applied on my list, I have a countdown column just here. And if I now add a new item to my list, well, you will see here that if I choose a date and time, that this is automatically added and done for me. This was a time saver, a lifesaver for many projects we had internally, being able to track what the time limit or the day limit is for a specific list item. That's has been never done before. And with this, you can track almost anything you have in your list item. Not saying to you that planner or tasks or to-do or project or list board view is a bad thing. I'm just saying you that within one single click, one column, now you can actually count down and add intelligence around that list item by just defining what's your deadline. And then you can easily, as a project manager, as an IT manager, come and see if that limit is being screwed up or not. And that's all possible within a few clicks, right? Okay, now we have our VAT, right? VAT, a few numbers, we have a price. What was also one of the things that visually appealing was so great for us was the file constraints. Here within file constraints, I can tell my value, and let's go for price. I can easily say to my value, to validate the value, if it's less than 500 as an example, and then it will say, okay, for less than 500, I'm okay with that. Otherwise, show price must be less than 500. So you can bring that conditional intelligence to your list items as well. And let's go for this. If my price is less than 500, no worries. If it's more than 500, you should say price must be less than 500. And you can even add your own personalized message, right? You can also add some conditions. Again, as I said, this doesn't apply for the CEO, or this doesn't apply on specific dates and times, and all the intelligence you would do in your logic. If I save this now, without even leaving the SharePoint experience, here I can just click on new, and then basically on the price, if I put 6,000, you will see that I receive a new message which says price must be less than 500, right? And then if I just have like 490, well, that error message will disappear because now I'm into my logic, which says, okay, the price is less than 500, so it's okay to go here for. Two last demos because I think we're almost at 45. I just have two things to show to you, which is so phenomenal with the KWIZ apps, is the following. The KPIs as well as the cascading lookup. The KPIs is this one. KPIs is basically a visual way to show on how good or bad it is within your defined range as a price. So let's say for the price, here, I like to show in a progress bar the, let's go for price and say, you know what? My budget is, let's say, 500 per item. And then it will show this to you in a progress bar on how good or bad you are within the list item. You can change the colors and click on save. I'm just going to leave the colors for the sake of time. Just leave it like that. And if I now go for my quiz prod, well, now you will see visually on how good or bad I am within my list item. And I can see, okay, Gokan here on that list item, well, he only used 20% of his budget, but I can see all the rest have been using a bunch of their budget and they're way, way above. If I go for Jeff Teeper as an example, well, you can see that the price he has put is a lot. And now if I put like 150, I'm going to edit this. and put 150, right, and click on save. Even without save, you'll see that the progress bar is modified for me, which gives you a visual aspect of the logic you have defined within your list. Look how beautiful this looks like in your SharePoint list. Finally, the last thing I want to talk to you is about and therefore I have like the cascading lookup. Take the example, just to make it very clear, a list with company names and people working for you. Well, basically, when you click on new, what you can do is make some cascading columns from one list or to another list. It all depends on how you might want to do. Here, if I click one of those, Microsoft or KWIZ, if I click on Microsoft, well, you'll see that he will filter for me the people who are working for Microsoft. If I click on KWIZ, well, you can see that now he did all the filtering based on the people who work for KWIZ. And you can see I have 5 items, 2 are for Microsoft and 3 for KWIZ, and you can see all of them are appearing here. One thing I don't know if you have seen is I made a mistake, because mistake is human. I made this KWIZ in all capitals and this in normal writing. As you can see, it was intelligent enough to make the difference. Okay, like this is the same. I don't care about case sensitivity. So I have like 2 customers, Microsoft as well as KWIZ, and he could do the filtering for me. How does that work actually in real time? If you go again to the KWIZ apps and go to the cascading lookup, well, you will see again the same scenario. Well, you create either a new column or you click on the existing one, and the only thing that you have to fill in is say, okay, this is the list where I'm gonna go from the site, and this is the list, and I want the column name as well as the title that you want to filter. Basically, just those 2 columns. And what's really, really nice, and that I learned this like a couple of days ago, that it allows you to add new items. And look, when you build this and go to cascading lookup, here, if you add new, and if you're not happy with the results you receive, here you can add a new one. And then you can say title, let's say Facebook. Oh no, that's Gokan probably. Customer name, let's say Facebook, right? And then click on save. So I added a new customer and a new name, and look what's going to happen. Oh, it was the other way around. My apologies. Now, basically, this should have been Facebook, but now you have Gokan, which appears here, and then you should see Facebook there. So you don't have to go to your list and list item and add new item and blah, blah, blah. You can all do that from the source list and add new items just here into. It was a 40 minutes intensive demo about all what KWIZ can do for you. And honestly, I didn't talk about the printing, the scanning. I didn't talk about the file controller. Like, you can even go here and say, okay, you know what? I like to block some files. I like to allow some files. Universities, as an example, if you have to have a SharePoint list and ask people to write something for you, you can ask them to upload only PDF files or Word files. Well, easily from here, you can block everything and just allow PDF files. You can even limit the file size of your list and ask people to add those files into your apps, and so on and so on. A bunch of stuff which I really like to use. No code within SharePoint, within the SharePoint frame. Sarah, that's all what I had to explain. I leave the end of the show just for you.
Thank you very much, Gokan. It was impressive as always. I have attended numerous of your sessions, in various parts of the world, and I was always impressed. It's so informative, so engaging. Recently, I think this year, I even attended the co-pilot session of yours, and I know nothing about it, but it was so digestible and so easily presented that I just gained a lot of knowledge. And even here, it's our product. I learned a lot from you. So thank you very much, Gokan. And I think we have some questions. So now is the time to ask any questions that you may have. So we'll gladly address them. Let's see. We have some questions. I saw some questions coming in. I see some birthday wishes for you, Gokan.
Thank you so much. I like them all. Thank you so much.
And I have to tell a secret. Gokan, actually, we were planning to schedule this webinar yesterday, which was his birthday. And I said, no way, Gokan, I know your wife is going to surprise you. So I had to convince him to change it to today. Okay, so I see Billy has a question. Is there a way to set up signatures so that two people can sign a document? Or that if one person signs a document, that it will save and stay assigned if someone else edits the file? So thank you for the question, Billy. Yes, you can have as many people as you would like. You can even have set up some workflows. For example, let's say it's a form with several amounts. Let's say if the amount is under $1,000, it can go, you have a workflow notification goes to a certain person who is authorized to sign. If it's over a certain amount, to second person, third. So you can make it as complex as you would like, or as simple as you would like. I hope that addressed your question. If you need further clarifications, please feel free to ask. And we are happy to meet with you in person. And this is for everyone. We can demonstrate, we can do a private demo for you that will address your specific business requirements. So don't hesitate to email me. It's sarah@quizcom.com. That's SARA@quizcom.com. Again, I'm happy to meet at your convenience and demonstrate the product according to your specific business requirements. I see many people are asking about the session recording. Yes, the session is being recorded, and I will be emailing the recording link to everyone. I'll do it later today. Are there any size limits on the amount of columns? I don't think they are. Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong. There are no limits.
Yeah, correct. There aren't any limits. It's just a normal SharePoint limit. So the number of different types of columns which you're allowed.
As I see again, many people asking about the recording. Tracy is asking, can the countdown show in the view, or do you have to go into each form to see the countdown? Peter, I'll ask you to address this.
I believe it's within the form, so it's not available in the view currently.
It is, and actually I was in one of the team meetings, I believe it was yesterday. I think they are going to see if they want to display it in the list view, so this is probably on the roadmap. So we will verify, Tracy, and we will get back to you.
There's also a couple of questions in the Q&A section, which I'll call out now. So the first one is, do you have an approval flow? Yeah, yes. So the answer to that is yes. The actions and activities which Gokan demonstrated can be used for an approval process as well. And then another question around, can the external data source be SQL Server? It certainly can. You'd have to be able to connect to that via a web service. So if that was hosted in Azure SQL, or if it was an on-premises SQL environment, we'd have to be able to connect through to that on-premises SQL Server via some form of web service to connect to that data source. So definitely possible, but with those specific considerations.
There is a question if the form look can be customized, for example, adding logos or images, etc. Yes, absolutely. You can customize it the way you want by adding logos, images, anything you'd like. And again, we're happy to demonstrate this to you in person. Question from James, does Quid get added to the App Store for the tenant? Peter, would you like to take that question?
Yes, so you can install it. You install it in your App Store. You then choose to either enable the app on a single site, or you can make it tenant available.
A similar question from Jack about customization of the forms, being able to add logos and other graphics or colors on a form to signify sections or breaking up areas would be great. Yes, John, you can customize it the way you'd like by having different tab colors and adding logos or images and a lot more. James is asking about licensing. So James, it is, I assume you're using SharePoint Online. So this is the licensing is based per number of users in your SharePoint Online tenant. Send me an email. You see my email address displayed on the screen and advise me how many users you have. Approximate number is good, and I'll provide you with exact pricing. It's an annual subscription. One thing I also want to mention, the product comes with a free trial. So it's a fully functional trial, just time limited. It's 2 weeks, so send me an email, I can help you install the free trial. Martin is asking if information can be brought into forms from an Excel sheet. I believe it can. Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it can be, yeah.
Okay, so let's see if we have any further questions. So you're very welcome. Are the apps available in one package? If your organization is interested with any solutions, who do we reach out to get it implemented? Justin, I'm trying to understand your question. Are you asking about specific features in Form that you have seen? If that's the case, then yes, if you're interested only in specific features, yes, okay, thank you for verifying. Yes, if you're interested in specific features, again, just send me a quick email and I can have a quick meeting with you. It is possible, yes, to obtain only specific features. Let's just verify to ensure I haven't missed any questions, because there were at some point many questions coming in at the same time.
No. I'm surprised no one is asking about PowerApps, or, you know, it's a good sign. It's a very good sign.
I believe these were all the questions for today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gokan. Thank you to all our valued. I see some of them are our clients, some of them are partners, some of them new names. So thank you very much for joining today's session. It was a pleasure again talking to you and seeing all of you today. This was an amazing session, Gokan. I wanted to thank you once again, and we hope to have you again as a guest speaker in the near future. So once again, if there are any other questions you have, please send me an email. You see my email displayed. I can meet with you at your convenience, answer your questions. I'll help you with the free trial. And thanks again very much. I will be sending the webinar recording link later today.
Cheers, bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. Have a great day.